Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. Email has the highest ROI of all marketing channels. Are you maximizing its potential and growing your list? Drive conversions and create more connections with Seguno, the top-rated email marketing platform built exclusively for Shopify. Seguno is offering Winning with Shopify listeners an extended free trial, plus a complimentary strategy session with an email marketing expert. Visit seguno.com/winningwithshopify to claim your offer. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, a huge welcome to the show. My name's Nick. I've been running the podcast for a few years now, so I'm a little bit experienced and weathered in lots of different ways. But thank you so much for tuning in. It's great having you guys here. If you like the show, hit subscribe, leave us a review. It really helps spread the word of the show, which also means we get more listeners, we get more engagement, and we can get better guests to interview, to give you guys more tips and that sort of thing. If you've been tuning in for a while, then thank you so much for coming back. It's great to have your support. And if you haven't reached out to us before, then please do. We'd love to hear about what you think of the show, what questions you've got. And the place to do that is winningwithshopify.com. Fill out any of the forms on the site. They all come through to Byron and myself, and we're happy to pick up those bits and pieces. I've even spoken to a couple of you on Zoom and on the phone in the last few weeks as well, which has been really exciting to hear about your businesses and just ask questions about why you listen to the show. The last thing to highlight, which is incredibly exciting, is that we are running a webinar, and possibly one of the most exciting webinars I've ever run, and I've done hundreds of these things over the years. We've got the ex-CMO of Gymshark himself, and he previous to working at Gymshark also worked at Play.com. Richard is going to be joining us. So make sure you check that out. There'll be a link in the description. And there'll also be a link on the email. So if you're not on our email address, go and check that out. It's on winningwithshopify.com. Anyway, that is enough from me. Today we are continuing our series all about email with our lovely partners here at Seguno. And joining me today to talk about email is a merchant, and I'm very, very excited to have her on the show. Her name is Dr Stephanie Schull, and she's from KegelBell. So Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Hey Nick, thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And as we ask all of our guests, Stephanie, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of an overview to what your business is and what you guys sell, and also how did it start and how did you get into this?
Sure. Well, I am a doctor, but the philosophy professor kind, not the medical kind. And that may seem really unusual as the type of person who creates a medical device and markets it and figures out how to get it out there in the world. But sometimes, it takes an outsider to see what, has always been there. So basically what happened was I was happy being a philosophy professor and doing my thing in academia for 20 years. And then my mother, who had 5 children, had like this pelvic surgery. And she's now going to be in crippling pain for the rest of her life. Wow. So I was thinking, okay, what's going on? How did that happen? What, could this have been avoided? And all of a sudden, this whole world of women being in pain was opened up to me. I had no idea that more than half of all women are walking around with pelvic muscle weakness and the issues like bladder leakage and all these problems. And they're getting these surgical responses like my mother got. At any rate, when I went and did the research, I found out this was avoidable with basic exercise. And then I was on a mission to find out how to help women. So I left academia to try to make something that should have always existed. And I've been at it since basically we started selling in 2019. But it took a few years of R&D to get there.
Wow. I mean, it's certainly amazing to talk to someone who's actually solved a medical problem in the UK, we have so many restrictions of what we can and can't say. So it's often a treatment rather than a solution or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have got similar restrictions where you are as well. But yeah, it's lovely that you guys are solving Yeah, I imagine there is. I guess you've also got more lawyers per capita than we have in the UK as well, which makes it even more challenging. But I mean, certainly, you obviously set out on this mission. I guess the first question I want to ask really in terms of the product and how you kind of got going with the R&D, as you say, is how difficult was it as somebody who doesn't have a medical background, suddenly finding yourself navigating this minefield of all these problems and trying to get something going? Like, was it second nature? Were there nights where you were sitting there going, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing? And trying to stay true to the mission. Talk us through that journey.
Yes. Why did I do this? Yeah. It's been a hell of a ride, I have to tell you. If I think if I knew all that was involved, I wouldn't have started. But you just do it step by step and you get there. But sure, we're medically registered in the United States. We're medically registered now in Japan, the first ever medical device of its kind in Japan. And we're medically registered in Australia. So, that took, and we're patented. So all of these pieces, trademarks, patents, the engineering, the mold making, the manufacturing, each one is its own separate, nightmare to navigate. So yeah, I took on a lot. I took on a lot. And then I really hit another big wall that a lot of products don't. So when people want to invent something and bring it to market, they have to deal with manufacturing and sourcing and logistics. But we had all that medical registration stuff to deal with. And then we had, to patent it and everything else that we had to deal with. But we also had another obstacle, which is we can't talk about vaginas. So, the issue has to do with vaginal health. And so I have to use the word vagina. And you cannot use that in most media, in most platforms. So then I hit this huge marketing obstacle that a lot of people get to, not have to deal with, basically.
I mean, the marketing one alone, I mean, I as the audience know who are listening to this, like I work a lot in Google Ads. So we come across everything from trademark terms to you're trying to sell something that's actually a knife and it's like, oh my gosh, knives. And then when you look at it, you're like, it's for chopping carrots. There's nothing wrong with this knife.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, certainly. We've had it with Google where you can't advertise on words like baby, for example. It's now changed. So we have client sales, pushchairs, prams, that kind of stuff. So we didn't used to be able to use the word baby, but we can now, both in the keywords and the ads. But yeah, there's so many things around that because I guess the word vagina immediately just becomes X-rated, 18 plus, which is the opposite of where you're trying to sit, when it comes to marketing and what's going on. So I guess the big question really is like, what channels did you kick off with? Where did you start with marketing?
Yes, you're right. No, thank you for making me aware that other people will bump into a lot of those obstacles as well. So, and even text messaging with the shaft rules, we run into text messaging issues. So basically we were left with like SEO, like organic SEO, whatever social media organic stuff we could do, but not get flagged as inappropriate and shut down. So not really so much that. And then email. So basically I was left with how do we optimize for organic search to then capture email and then have a conversation with people privately on email. That was pretty much my toolkit. And then whatever I could get through on social media before I'm censored or before it's shut down. That's where I was at.
And it is really difficult.
That's some slim picking.
Yes, it is indeed. I mean, my first question was going to be, so, okay, if email is the biggest channel, how on earth do you get email addresses? But you mentioned you've obviously done it with SEO. Did you focus more on kind of like how-to keywords, FAQs, people Googling problems, that kind of thing, and kind of then get people to subscribe to email from there on? Was that a good angle for you guys?
Yeah, so early on, I spent money on a few things. And one thing I did spend money on was SEO. And I hired this group to like optimize our blogs. So that's pretty much how we did it is we would publish blogs and they would do the research to notify me like on keywords. And it got really nuanced, like say it in the heading 3, heading 2, heading 1, how many times. So it was quite nuanced. And so we had to write the articles. They had to be meaningful and they had to, this is mission oriented. So, I had to understand and believe that all the information was relevant. And then that had to be anchored into this keywords. So we got, on like the front search page for a lot of keywords, for hundreds of keywords with their efforts. And then we were grabbing emails by, people could volunteer and say, do you want to sign up? So we'd have a pop-up asking people to sign up and submit their email. And then we would have a welcome series and take it from there. So that's I want to say pretty much like 30 to 40% of our e-commerce sales would come from that,
Wow. Yeah, and I guess the frustration... Yeah, I guess the frustration for you guys is this isn't like most things where it's like, okay, we can run some ads, you buy the product, and then we can start emailing. It's like actually you've got to work really hard just to get the email address in, and which also means your funnel is longer, which gives more opportunity for people to drop out as well. So imagine the amount of SEO traffic you'd actually have to generate to get enough emails to then email to get a sale, and then how many emails to get enough sales to get long-term customers. And that we'll talk about lifetime value and kind of upsells later as well. But really, really difficult to do that. How did you find then emailing people? How did you find the initial engagement once they'd gone, started that welcome series? How long did it take you to optimize that as well, to make that as meaningful and as empowering as possible?
Well, we started out with really high click rates. I think they were, like 40% click rates. Open rates. And I think because the conversation wasn't happening anywhere else and people really have strong pain points around pelvic floor issues, they're peeing their pants, they, have, organ prolapse, sexual dysfunction. And so the pain points are really high. So I feel like maybe we got a lot of engagement that way just because they were so desperate to have that conversation or to learn more. But also I was being very personable. It's me. It's pretty much a one-person company who invented it, manufacture it, make it, sell it. So therefore, I think maybe that had something to do with it, that it's pretty obvious it's coming from me and from some of my customers. So that's how we, I think, kept engagement high. But yeah, then I wanted to outsource it. You know how when you grow a company, it's like eventually you're not supposed to wear all the hats. And then we would iterate on some email series that way. And it went from, image and storytelling to, now we're trying to move into more video. So that's an interesting transition that I'm experimenting with right now is video is great for storytelling. How do we transition for video? Video is obviously great for education as well.
Yeah. I want to pick up on a few points you've made there that are really well made. And I certainly think in one sense your journey with all of this is not very unique, and some of the learnings in a good way are not unique. It kind of corresponds with other brands we've spoken to over the years. One of them especially being kind of personal. So people buy into you. And I run a service-based business. It's like the joy and pain. The joy of like, if a staff member annoys you, it's a bit like, well, I'm the thing the client's bought into, so step aside. But then, any of my staff listening, I love you guys. But then also on the flip side, as you say, you have to wear all of the hats. So I think there's that kind of scaling that thing whilst keeping you at the center of it. And I guess the question I want to ask really, and there's a few other points I'll come on to in a minute as well, but the question I want to ask is, how difficult was it for you to let go of some things after kicking all this stuff off yourself and holding it? How difficult is it to actually let go and go, okay, I'm going to trust and believe in this person. I'm going to brief them and support them as much as I can, but I'm going to trust that they're now going to take something that I've started in whatever area. How difficult has that been?
Ooh, I would say it's super easy for me. I absolutely want to let go of this and let other people take over. I think my biggest obstacle is I don't have like outside funding. I haven't raised capital, and so I don't have a lot of money. And therefore, it's that battle, that tension with it's not that I want to pay them so little. I would love to give everyone, hundreds of thousands of dollars and make everyone around me, fulfill their dreams, their wildest dreams. But we have to deal with like hundreds of dollars, and trying to work with people when I'm paying them so little. That's been a bit of a struggle, like how to get quality, how to get volume with so little pay. And that's a reason, it's reasonable that would be a struggle, but that for me is the biggest piece, if that makes sense. It's like I don't have the money to pay to get fully done what needs to get done, and so that's the work part of how to squeeze out as much and as high quality for as little money as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. One bit of advice I always give to small businesses when they approach us, and a lot of you guys listening to the podcast have reached out and said like, oh, Nick, can you guys come work for us? And it's always like, we can have a look, but unfortunately, if you're of a certain size, we've kind of evolved and we're working with bigger brands, bigger budgets and that sort of thing. But it's hard when you meet these smaller businesses because it's literally heart versus head for me. The heart is like, yeah, I want to do everything and help you out. It's such a good cause. The head's going, but I'm going to end up bankrupt if I say yes to all of these, even to half of them. So I think it is a battle, but I think the advice I always give to people is that it sounds like you've done this a bit yourself as well. The more you can get it off the ground yourself, then you're hiring someone to evolve and scale something, not start something. And it's the starting something where it's like, we have quite a strict list of pillars that we assess. It's not like, like we take on people with this and not with this, but we have a load of pillars we like to look at just to kind of go, okay, have they overcome that first hurdle of and it's not just about money, it's about skills, conversion rates, capacity within the business. You can bring in the best SEO agency in the world, but if they're not going to write the content and build the links, someone needs to. And that someone's going to be you. And so you've got to kind of look at, what capacity you've got as well. And it kind of goes with any supplier relationship. But yeah, I hear your pain. Like, I talk to a lot of people in that same space. And I say my advice is always to do exactly what you've done. Get it going yourself and then hire someone in and say, I can't afford a lot, or even agree some sort of like percentage and say, I'll pay you a percentage of whatever I'm spending or making or something. So actually, it's on you, scale this thing up, tell me what you need. And they might go, do you know what? I'm going to do loads of extra hours because the reward's there if I make it. And actually, you can try to make it a bit of a win-win. You also don't want to get locked in when they grow you a little bit and it's not enough, and then you find that you're now overpaying them. So I think you'll be really careful about that sort of thing. Coming back to another thing you mentioned, though, about video. Video is so expensive. Mm-hmm. So coming back to your other point as well about funding, how are you guys generating video without these huge production costs and the equipment and hiring like 20 people into a shoot to do stuff, which I assume you're not doing unless you've bitten the bullet and going, no, we're going gung-ho on this. How do you guys produce video without it costing the earth, unless it does cost the earth?
Okay, great question. So up until this point, I've been doing it pretty much just on my own, or maybe someone will pitch in. Like, I have to say, part of how I got this far with a medical device, which is almost impossible to get a medical device invented and to market with so little money, is because the women that find out about this and use it are so, passionate about helping. So I've gotten a lot of help from a lot of professionals because they love the product and use it, and they just see it as like a charitable act to help me out. And so, for example, like my training videos, that was my first customer. Her daughter does video for CNN, and on her Christmas break, she did our training videos for us, for example. So that kind of like good graces and good fortune. And so I see most of our video was just generated by me or one of our, I call them vagina philanthropists, people that help out because they love the product. So that's, fortunate. I'm not selling insurance or something boring. It's people are motivated to do something to help. However, right now, as we speak, I just launched a new video series in which I'm for the first time ever paying to have professional videos made. So that's with a group called Wildfire. And I've been working with them for about a month, and we're having our first video a day. So we're doing a video a day. And that's exciting. That does cost a quantum of money. But I think it's a very affordable quantum for the output that I'm getting. And so with that video a day, we're having more sustained conversations online. And now I'm looking at how to embed that conversation into the emails. So this is all happening in real time. Like if you go on my social, you'll see there's like a week's worth of videos posted, one a day. And now I'm going to do the work of plugging those into Seguno, which is pretty easy. They have like this really simple way of embedding videos. And now we're going to see how the conversation is going to change. Will people like it? Will they not? So far, I've only tested one email with one of these videos embedded, and I wasn't pleased with the results. But a test of one is not really a test. So, maybe it was too much of a shock, too much of a change of my previous voice. Maybe you have to wait and see. But I do think there's merit to it. I mean, if I continue not to like the click-through rates or the click rates, I will stop. But the test of one didn't blow me away. But I am curious to see what more consistency by plugging these videos into email may have. Yeah.
And again, like there's 2 or 3 points I want to pull out of this because it's really exciting, especially to hear that you're currently running on the ground doing this. It's really cool. The testing of one. There was a really interesting case study I heard from I don't think you guys have them in the US, but there's a brand in the UK called AO. And they sell just kind of white goods, washing machines, dishwashers, ovens, all this kind of stuff, which I know you've got a whole range of different words for all the above in the US. But these guys, they were saying that they did like a Facebook Live one day. And bear in mind, they're one of the biggest brands that everybody recognizes them in the UK. It's a huge amount of awareness. They did this Facebook Live and like 300 or 400 people turned up, and the engagement wasn't great. There were hardly any likes on Facebook Live, and it was a bit of a flop. And the directors were like, delete it, take it down, don't do it again. and they got permission to run at least 4 more after a bit of dialogue, and they ran 4 more. And by the time they got to the end one, I can't remember the exact numbers now, but I think it was like 100,000 people tuning in live to watch a plumber install a washing machine, because they made it fun. And because the point being is, all the things they learnt to make it successful, and I think it took them like 30 rounds of going live every week. So there's over half a year to get to that point. But they made it so fun, and all the things they needed to do to make it work and make it engaging, it was impossible for them to have known when they launched the first one. They had to learn. And so I think certainly on that thing, I love the fact that you're not saying like, oh, it was a disaster, all the money's wasted, I'm quitting Seguno and giving up. Quite the opposite. Like, it was only one, I wasn't blown away, but I'm going to stick with this thing. I'm going to work out why it wasn't good and how we make it work, because I know it's a level up. I know it's a game changer for my customers if I can get this thing to tick. So I think the test of one, as you call it, I love that as a phrase. And I think, yeah, you got to keep going with it. And let's face it, if you gave up the first medical device you probably designed or tested or whatever, you probably wouldn't be sitting here. You know, you have to evolve these things. I think taking that approach is really, really powerful.
Oh, totally. And you know, some ways of changing things are more painful than others. We had an original design for KegelBell that I thought was brilliant about the nesting weights. But I recall an early beta customer was an engineer from MIT, and she couldn't figure out how to get the weights to nest. And I'm like, oh, we have to redesign it. So, redesigning it is very expensive when you're talking about mold making and all of that, and takes 6 months. But with email, it's on the fly and it doesn't cost anything. And so, yeah, it's very nimble and very easy. And yeah, with Seguno, it's amazing. I wanted to say that I had been doing email on my own for a while. Then I handed it off to a consultant to do, and he put it on Klaviyo. And then I had to take it back because I have to like lower my budget and save some money. And in taking it back, Klaviyo was too hard. I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time to learn this whole new email service. So I was wondering, what to do next. And I saw Seguno, and I thought to try it. And it's like, okay, for anyone who's wearing all of the hats, this is the easiest email, the most intuitive, the most powerful, and all of the things you want and none of the things you don't. So I don't think Seguno wants me to say that, but I just had to say it because it's true. You always delete it. But my God, do they make it easy? And how beautiful is it of a tool with Shopify? It's like, chef's kiss to them. So anyway, yeah. So making these changes, changing things on the fly, seeing the analytics, super easy. And so I have no problem with experimenting. You have to experiment with email. Like you said, iterations, voice, how do we communicate about these things with humor, too much humor, too little? Like what does the audience need in order to have an effective communication?
Absolutely. And you can say what you want about Seguno because they're sponsoring this. And I'll be honest, I absolutely love them. I didn't know much about them until they first reached out, and I had a look, and we've put a couple of clients on it and we've had exactly the same feedback. But I have to say to everyone listening, I am being paid to say that. They have sponsored all of this. But we do vet our sponsors as well. We don't just let anybody kind of come in the door. I think one of the most important things as well that you've got back there is you've got the result that you want, but you've also got time. And so you now have more time to do things because Seguno are helping you with the automations, which are making you more money. So you've got more money and time, which are the two most important currencies when you're running a business. So I think you're kind of winning on both sides there. But taking a complete sidestep quickly, you've just mentioned something else, which is in our notes for today. And I want to talk about it because you guys have a really fun brand. And I want to talk about brand for a second. So I guess, where should we start with it? Like, how did you guys come up with the brand? Why did you decide to make it so fun and not so kind of, like here in the UK, we have the NHS and, it's all very medical and all blue and white. Why did you come up with such a fun brand? What was behind that? What were you trying to get across? And how has it worked and evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, I thought a lot about branding during the research and development phase, which went on for so long. I had plenty of time to meditate on that. And to me, it was really strategic. It was where are existing products being sold for women that try to solve this? And there was really two places: major medical with like the surgeries and things I discussed that are problematic, and this we don't have time to talk about why it's problematic, but they can do research and see the problems with surgical responses to these issues. And then there were devices sold in sex toy stores. that did not work, but there was not a legitimate conversation to find out that they don't work. And so I thought, well, I don't want to go the sex toy store route, even though doctors were telling people, go to sex toys and try these things, they might help you. And I didn't want to go major medical because you're not sick if you have pelvic muscle weakness. You just need to exercise. So I don't like the messaging that you're sick and there's something wrong with you. But also, in at least the United States, who can afford to court and discuss doctors with doctors? Like, the patients can't afford to go to doctors, and I, as a business person, can't afford to wine and dine doctors and talk to them about this product. So those two avenues that were expected were closed to me for various reasons. So then I thought, let's just go like fitness. Let's go direct to consumer. Let's make it bright and happy. So then I was like, let's make it yellow. Like, we don't need to make it red or black or pink or purple or any of those typical colors found in sex toy stores. And I don't want to make it totally devoid of the human experience the way it is in major medical, because this is an experience thing in women's lives. And so, yeah, I won awards right away in the beauty space. Here are all these luxury brands. I have my $5,000 in the bank, and I have to launch this medical device that I just got manufactured. And how am I going to spend my $5,000? So I decided to go to this beauty trade show and launched it there, and they loved it. I won several awards. I was put on stage at their next event. The Costco buyer found me there. I was so broke I couldn't give free samples, so the Costco buyer and her entourage had to pay for them themselves. But I think that branding choice of saying, I'm going to go bright yellow, I'm going to have humor, I'm going to make it personal, that really resonated with the beauty space and with the fitness space, and the industry leaders recognized it, but most importantly, the customers liked it. So that paid off, and that still pays dividends on the branding.
Yeah, I mean, what a journey you've been on. You mentioned like three or four points, which, if any of my staff are listening, mute quickly. I can relate to where you're having that moment of like, okay, I can't, like you said, you can't even afford free samples, but here you are winning awards, knowing you're changing lives, and then it all starts to grow from there. And then at least, I think that certainly has more context to what we were talking about earlier about marketing, when you've got a few $100s to spend and it's like, where do I put it? I need to put it somewhere. It has to yield something. I need some sort of return for this thing. But I mean, certainly the awards speak for themselves. And I think it was interesting that you turned up to like a beauty luxury trade show rather than a medical one. And I think that speaks so true to the brand and everything you've just said about actually wanting to make it, bring it to life and not tell. And I love that phrase, well, you're not sick. You just need a bit of training. Mm-hmm. And it's also, if anybody does go on the website, it says the Vagina Gym, which it looks like you've trademarked that term as well, which is really exciting. Yes. And again, the whole philosophy is like, I mean, even the philosophy around a gym, I'm sure you spent ages speaking about this, but first recognition in my head is it's a group thing. It's full of people. Everybody's working harder to better themselves. It's such a different take on like, here's a white box with some gobbledygook that nobody knows what it means, but the doctor said this is going to help. Take it in the morning. Don't tell anyone. Like, it's a very personal thing. To suddenly, this is like, we're doing this together, ladies, and we're going to sort this thing out, which, I think it's really, really powerful. And as you say, it's obviously working.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a beauty show that had a lot of luxury items, but it was called indie beauty. So like independent beauty, there's these, so I think that might've been part of it, but those brands that come out of there are household names, even though they were launched like in this independent way. So yeah, I think it was the beauty space where people take care of themselves. Think about self-care costs a little bit more. So there's like your $50 creams and your beauty devices that people use to take care of themselves. And that's where I saw it as like self-care. And, my vision was, I want to see a KegelBell besides every woman's toothbrush in her bathroom or in her shower, hanging in her shower by her shampoo. It should just be part of self-care, and it should just be part of our routine, and it shouldn't be something that we're embarrassed about that we hide. So we have a shower holder because it's about like, how do you put this into a habit that you're already doing? But also, why shouldn't it be hanging in your shower, like your soap or your washcloth, just to take care of yourself and your health?
Yeah, nice. Nice. And that leads me nicely, actually, to one of the other things I really want to talk about today is some brands like you guys, you have one main product, and once somebody's bought it, apart from some emails and tell a friend and refer a friend, there's a real challenge, isn't there, of like, well, what do people buy next? I've got all this data, they love me, I can't make a second version of it, they might not necessarily buy a second one unless you're about to tell me otherwise. How do you guys do upsells? How do you build lifetime value? How do you got someone super engaged enough to buy the thing and they're still receiving your emails, they're using the products on a daily basis. How do you get them to buy more? How do you actually generate more revenue from that same customer?
That is the question, because that was posed to me when I first started talking with investors, thinking I was going to get investors early on. And they're like, wait a minute. You can't just have one product, because then you're spending all your marketing on just one sale. And I was so mission oriented, I wasn't seeing that. I'm like, I'll deal with that problem later. Like, I just want to help women. Can we just work on that? And then we'll work on how I can stay alive as a company to continue to help women. Because that's really what it's about. Like, for me, at least, I'm not capitalist in that way, but more like, how do I stay alive as a company in order to continue to serve women? And I have to sell them more than once something, but it has to be useful as far as I'm concerned, right? I want to help them. And so like the shower holder was an attempt to do all of those things. Like, women were telling me they know they need to use it, they see the benefits, but they forget to use it. So it's like, okay, use it in the shower, which is a logical place to use it. Let's give them a shower holder. And that's something that we can sell to them, but it also helps them use the product. Let's get them insert serum so that they can insert it, and the device needs to be kept in a slippery environment when they use it. I don't need to go into the details, but that means that they need something slippery that I have to sell them, and then we can sell them that. Or a device cleaner. Now, like the device cleaner, I was like, you can clean with any soap and water, don't worry about it. But the women kept asking for it. So I'm like, well, I can make a device cleaner, and then, you can buy it. So for me, philosophically, it has to be something of utility that helps them get better. But yes, absolutely, you need to upsell. And their like email with our customers is key. And that's really the only place we can do it is through email. And so that's a big part of our continuing conversation, like education. How are you using it? Are you happy with the lubricant you're using? Are you happy with, So I think that's how we're approaching it. But you're right, to survive as a company, you need to upsell. And that awareness has fully dawned on me, and I am struggling to figure out how to do that and philosophically, fulfill my mission just to help women and not exploit them. But as a result, I'm actually thinking about, and I have started taking on the products of other CEOs who I love what they do and what they're selling. It has integrity and quality, and then making relationships with them and selling with them.
Yep. I think, that's such a good way to do it, is that kind of cross-pollination, if you like, of like, okay, I've got a product that helps one thing, you've got a similar product that does something completely different. So you're not a competitor, but both our customers should be interested in buying each other's products. Yeah, and it's simple as sending an email saying like, hey, here's a featured product from one of our lovely friends. We interviewed them the other day, and here's a video of that interview where we were both comparing our products and what different things they help, and then we actually asked some customers that's on the video, or you get this suddenly gives you this whole realm of ideas of other things you can do. Obviously, I'm a marketing creative, so I try to come up with these things on the fly. But yeah, I think it's a really good, smart move. But good. But yeah, so I think, I guess the other thing with the upsells as well is, once somebody's kind of got all the products, unless they're asking, and I think that even when customers ask for something, isn't it challenging when you're like, okay, they're all asking for a cleaner so they can clean their product, even though as you say, you could use anything. They're asking for a cleaner. What you got to be so careful of with customers is it might only be like 5 or 10, but it feels like thousands. So you relaunch something and then no one buys it. And you're like, oh, even the 5 that said I should do this haven't bought it. There's always a risk with these things as well. So I imagine even when you added like a second or third product, I assume you did like a small run of them, see how successful they are. You had to obviously seek out new suppliers, that kind of thing as well.
Yes, all of that. Yes, like I was white labeling a lubricant that was FDA registered. And, that's so interesting. I saw that the other dominant lubricants, or I shouldn't say any of this probably, But the other dominant lubricants sold out there were the exact same formula. And these major companies, I won't name them, are selling it to good effect. So I thought, okay, here's a safe lubricant. It's FDA registered. It's sold by all these other name brands, that you can get everywhere. But, I didn't personally like the quality that much. So I'm glad I did a small order, and I just threw it away.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with, the one thing I can say, which is medically correct, is paracetamol in the UK, you can buy it from like a supermarket or something for like 25, 30p for a nice big pack of paracetamol, and there's limits on how many you can buy. And then the premium stuff, I literally stood there in a supermarket because my wife told me they're the same, and I was like, they can't be like that. I know I work in marketing and I see all the smoke and mirrors, but they can't. I checked the back and I was like, they're identical. I mean, you're talking like 0.1% difference on a couple of bits. So I Googled it, does this make any difference? And there was literally nothing. There's no one's even gone as far as going, obviously not. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who works in manufacturing for medical stuff. He says, same factory make the same things for 10 brands. One will cost you £20 and one will cost you 20p. And I was like, what? This is absolutely ridiculous. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And I think certainly on a bigger, wider kind of Shopify merchant and just online selling note, there are so many brands and stores, and customers are really wise to it now, that are all buying from the same Alibaba supplier in China or India or Vietnam or something. They're just shipping thousands of units of stuff around the world, and it is just stuff. Like, well, I used to sell sunglasses, and I could see the same sunglasses we were selling in other stores. We were fighting other USPs. There were things we could do that other brands couldn't. We could offer to the customer. And even things like we were the only one who got them UV tested, for example, and found out half our stock was not UV compliant. So we couldn't advertise it as UV, so we reported everybody else to the regulators, and we had a bit of an edge. So although it was the same supplier, we did some other stuff, but customers now are very wise that the same pair of sunglasses has come from the same place. So irrespective of what you're selling, that's a problem. The difference that you've got, Stephanie, is you've got a product that you've actually patented, invented and created yourself. And as you say, it's the only one in Japan, which, I think you're probably just on, you must be believing this yourself if you're still doing this. You must just be on the cusp of having some enormous scaling season coming up where we just need enough people to know it exists for it to become a household name for us to sell more. And I guess that's the thing you're just building towards, and you see it happening in your email campaigns. You see it in engagement, regardless of those obstacles.
Yes, scaling. I'm just signed up to be part of this entrepreneurship group to talk about scaling. So hopefully I'll learn some things. But, and maybe this is familiar with your audience or maybe not, but every day it's an existential threat. That's not a cheery thing to say, but but it's been that way for years, and so telling my husband, I'm sure he's terrified every day. I'm like, this could blow up any day. But you're just always on the edge, it seems, of balancing all these things. And I guess that's entrepreneurship 101. But, to me, it's very foreign and very nerve-wracking to feel like we're on the verge of greatness, or we could just go out of business at any point. The littlest thing can knock you out, because these things come up, I don't need to delineate them all, that are really, problematic. Like when shipping was delayed and bottlenecked because of, that ship getting stuck in that shipping channel and, or whatever, and then they're delayed weeks or months. These things just happen along the way, and they just put you at existential risk. So yeah, I think it's harrowing to be an entrepreneur, which is why, we talk about having the best toolkit and what saves you time and what's the most effective, because we're all just trying to stay alive, I think, maybe.
Yeah. I'd also go as far as saying it's the thing that keeps us all awake during the day is the adrenaline of, I think whenever I got complacent, I almost kind of start creating a couple of scenarios in my head of going like, what if that person leaves? What if this client fires us? What if, they turn around and tell me the mortgage on our office has suddenly gone up and now I need to pay more and I can't make the payments and all this sort of stuff? Or, interest rates have gone up through the roof. And that has affected us all. This affected anybody who owns any kind of property. And the opposite is happening that all the governments say they want, of more of us owning little bits of the country each. The opposite's happening because no one can afford it. No one can borrow any money to get it. And no one's got the cash to just buy it. So, yeah, you're absolutely right with all these things that can hit you. But it's that adrenaline that keeps us going. And I'm sure as much as you sort of said your husband is, can be nervous about it, I can vouch that on my darkest days, my wife's there and I need that. And she almost kicks me. She's like, get your backside back on that laptop and fix fix it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I need today. And I go and fix it, and then I have a good night's sleep, and it's all all right. And so, yeah. Well, look, Stephanie, we'll bring things into land there. I really appreciate your time. It's been great to chat to you. And final question from me is, people will be listening to this going, all right, I didn't quite get the name at the start. Like, how can they reach out to you? Where's the website? What are your social handles? How can they get in contact?
Well, I love email. So hello@kegelbell.com is one of the ways I like to communicate. But we're on just about everything from TikTok to X to Facebook to Instagram, YouTube under @KegelBell. So yeah, got that branding all locked in, got that trademark all locked in, got early on all those platforms, so that hopefully makes it easy for people to find us. And and if they want to purchase the product, a really nice way to do so is to go to Costco.com, and you don't need a membership. They say, sign up, but you can buy it without a membership. And that's a really great way to get the product as well if they're interested in trying it through a group like that. So yeah, I got that Costco deal early on, which was amazing confirmation, because they don't sell anything that's not great quality, and they've been selling our device for 3 years now.
And I imagine with some of those things as well, not to dive straight back into normal podcast content, but so many brands I've spoken to, as soon as you get that first deal, you can get other ones. You say, look, we're already here. So we've gone through all of their checks and hoops, which A means you know the process, and B means the next person's more likely to trust you because you've done it. So yeah, appreciate your time, Stephanie. And if anyone wants to check it out, it's KegelBell, KegelBell. So anyway, thank you so much, Stephanie. Appreciate your time.
Lovely. Thank you, Nick. It was fun. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. And for everybody listening, back again next week. Apologies, a few weeks ago now, but we didn't post on one of our Fridays, so apologies. We've done an extra post in the meantime to make sure we catch up. But yeah, we normally post every Friday. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Thanks a lot.